Let's jump to this thread from Drew
on this one guy.
Democrat hypocrisy. But I want to start by saying this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end. What we're seeing, the utter hypocrisy from Democrats and media pundits, cannot survive. Progressives are already tweeting, smack talking the Democratic establishment and the media establishment. Obviously not every single one, but many of them are saying we did not vote for this. Yeah. There's one Twitter account that's getting memed around like crazy because they were like, I'm deactivating my account. I did not realize Biden would do this. This is wrong. We didn't want war. He lied to us. I think about Barack Obama. He did the same thing, but there was no Twitter.
Right.
So what happens is we can see the hypocrisy. We can see Jen Psaki, press secretary, saying, under what authority is Donald Trump bombing Syria? What about now, when Joe Biden, 36 days in, does the same thing? We can see all of these Democrats, and it is stamped in our mind. So what happens now is the younger generation, they're going to see these tweets and be like, yeah, these people lied. That's it.
Right.
War is bad. We don't want this. I say this at the end. What I mean is that the establishment's stranglehold and ability to keep lying is weakening. I'm optimistic in this regard.
Yeah.
Because I've asked, how is it that so many people still fall for the mainstream media? They're probably older people watching TV. Younger people aren't. Now, many of these younger people probably fall for garbage emotional manipulation from a lot of these leftist grifters. But let's pull up this thread we have from the man himself, Drew Holden. And your tweet reads, it seems not all pointless foreign wars are created equally. In the eyes of the Democrats, the media, and the chattering class, when Trump hit Syria, it was an outrage. But under Biden, well, apparently things are different. Do you want to just read through some of the tweets? We'll show them and just break down for what you found.
I will. So I was going through it today, and I looked and I saw a lot of I was reminded very quickly of what happened in 2017 and 2018, where there was enormous criticism of Donald Trump hit Syria. I'm sure I was probably critical of it too. I saw it and I was like, I'm not sure I'm well about this one. Like
I criticized them. I'm getting these people tweeting at me. And they're like the haters, the tribalists. And they're like, are you going to, criticize Biden? No, you wouldn't criticize Trump. And I was like, I did. I criticized Trump on the Syria thing like every video. People complained about it. We get it, Tim. You're mad at Trump for firing Tomahawk missiles into Syria. And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to, I'll complain about it. I supported Tulsi Gabbard for that reason.
Exactly.
But the tribalists are full of it.
I lost so many followers when I went after Trump for doing those moves. He's like, no, Trump's doing the right thing. I'm like, no. Yeah. And I remember calling him out aggressively and losing a large ton of followers. And I was like, I don't care. Goodbye. And they were like, you're like CNN. You have Trump derangement syndrome. I'm like, no, I have principles. Something a lot of people,
So what you discovered?
So what I found very quickly was that for whatever reason, all of the people who were incredibly critical in 2017 and 2018 were not critical. Or the best one, I think the one I start off with. So usually the way I structure these is I'll hit the members of Congress first, and then the media, and then whomever, right? Blue checks. But the first one I had to start it with is a phenomenal side by side. It's Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC fame. When back in 2018 he had tweeted, "Dear news media, if you think Trump has constitutional authority to attack Syria, please say why. If you're not sure, please ask the question. Please stop using the phrase constitutional crisis, as it can only refer to firing people, not missiles." Right? A lot of concerns. Very concerned was Lawrence O'Donnell then. Lo and behold, last night, right after all of this goes down, he tweets out a link to his upcoming show that has Ben Rhodes, failed MFA, failed short story writer, turned policy wonk, apparently Ben Rhodes. And Lawrence O'Donnell tweets, "Ben Rhodes has been in the room when the president orders a proportional response." And he has him on, and they talk about why this specific attack made total sense, complete and total sense.
Well, you look, Drew, you just misunderstand. It has always been the position of the Democrats that bombing Syria is a good thing. Now, the issue isn't that Donald Trump was bombing Syria. The issue was that the man who ordered them happened to have been orange. You see, it makes sense now.
Yes,
now
exactly.
Understand.
It's a night and day difference. And so I think it's interesting because a lot of Democratic politicians very much went with that sort of mentality and thread. My favorite, Nancy Pelosi, she tweeted, this is in 2017, so right after these first strikes, "Retweet if you agree," which is a horrible thing to put in a tweet.
Right?
just in terms of a little Twitter 101, please, for the love of God, don't do that. "Retweet if you agree that Congress has a responsibility to immediately debate President Trump's actions in Syria." Which is hysterical because back then, in 2017, she had no power to bring everyone back in and force everyone to have this conversation. She is now the Speaker of the House who could call back Congress tomorrow. She could force them to have this conversation. For whatever reason, no interest.
Weird.
But perhaps, actually, I take that back. My favorite among elected officials has to be Barbara Lee. She used a couple of emojis. I think it's questionable. It's dubious. The first was the shouting emoji, all caps. Trump doesn't have the authority to have troops in Syria, much less to protect oil. Apparently Biden does. And then, again, Twitter 101, please don't do this. Oh, no. Producing foreign oil, clap hands is clap hands, not clap hands. Clap hands legitimate, clap hands military, clap hands mission, clap hands.
Just do the clap.
Stop endless war.
Protecting foreign oil is not a legitimate military mission. Stop endless war.
Thanks, I hate it. What the heck?
No follow-up from her. For whatever reason. Maybe you guys didn't turn on the news. I don't know. Because Friday is often not a working day in Congress, so maybe she just hasn't heard.
Did you try to contact them? Be like, hey, do you have a point on this? Do you want to say something
I should.
here?
Well, so obviously I always tag these people whenever I tweet at them, and for whatever reason I haven't heard anything back on these ones.
How strange.
What is this a proportional response to?
There was a rocket strike on an Iraqi military base that killed an American contractor. So Joe Biden said, "Oh, I'm gonna blow him up."
Allegedly, that's what they say.
Right,
but again,
right.
we have to understand what they say is usually a lot different than what actually happens.
And more importantly, there were reports going around as soon as Biden got in that U.S. troop movements in Syria started escalating. And we saw Western news sources saying, that's not true. It's a myth. This is totally normal. And then we saw, Middle Eastern sources saying the U.S. is running troops through Syria.
Yeah.
And then...
The New York Times, I believe, had the best take today. They had an article that was titled, U.S. Airstrike in Syria Targets Iran-Backed Militias. In that article, it literally says, and I quote, little is known about this group, including whether it is backed by Iran.
What?
Literally.
What?
That's literally what they said. So, yeah, a lot of information is very sporadic. It's very hard to believe. A lot of anonymous government sources are coming out, and they're not putting their name behind this, but they're saying this was defensive.
Wow.
Anonymous government source. Yes.
Look at this, New York Times.
Yep.
Little is known about the group, including whether it is backed by Iran or related to organizations that used the facilities for the American airstrikes targeted on Thursday. Let's go right to the top.
Go to the title.
Yeah.
Yep,
U.S.
title.
airstrikes in Syria target Iran-backed
Yes.
militias.
That's-
Are lying. Clap, clap, clap. Yeah, I'm doing it right?
Yeah,
And
well,
this is it, and it's already, and this is the thing. Like in a lot of ways, the media can speak these sorts of things into existence. The New York Times had another story with strikes in Syria. Biden confronts Iran's militant network.
Yes, I saw that.
Right? It's the same thing. It's if you repeat it. This is WMDs all over again. If you just repeat it over and over and over again, it becomes part of the conversation.
But another
it becomes
big thing,
real.
another big thing to realize here: the Iranian forces in Syria are the ones that are partly responsible for crushing ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Al-Nusra, and other Sunni radical groups. The Iranians are basically Shiite groups that are fighting against the Sunnis, and if it wasn't for the Iranians and the Syrians working together, ISIS would still have a huge foothold inside of Syria. So by Biden and by Donald Trump attacking the Syrian government, they're attacking the people that are stopping ISIS, that's spreading radical jihadism and terrorism all over the West. That's another point here. Oddly, that point was forgotten by the mainstream media. They forgot to mention that one for some strange reason.
Under Trump, ISIS was crushed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they lost a lot of their funding that was given to them by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
And then he blew up the main dude.
Yeah.
Well,
Got
Russia
couple for
also
that.
took a large part in that and exposed how a lot of the oil that was being, siphoned in by ISIS was actually traded to Turkey. Russia exposed how there was caravans working with the Turkish military along with ISIS, usually financing terrorism. Saudi Arabia, Israel also financed the Sunni, larger Wahhabist terrorist groups in there. Israel, by the way, was given advanced notice of this airstrike, and they released a statement that they're very pleased that this airstrike happened in that particular region. So there's a lot of different geopolitical things happening, but essentially I boil it down to the larger class of civilizations that's happening in the Middle East between the Sunnis and the Shiites. The Sunnis, the radical Islamists, are on the side of Israel.
So they're saying in the media over and over again, Iran. Yeah. Iran. Deep down they say, oh, we don't know for sure, but we're going to keep saying their name over and over again. So how long until we have war with Iran? They've been trying to do this. John Bolton said, what did John Bolton say? By this time next year, we will be celebrating in Tehran.
Yeah, he was wrong on his timeline, but we have to understand what Syria is. It's not about Syria. Syria is a larger proxy war between the United States, Russia, and also China in some ways. China has actually even sent some support to the Syrians. China has a very close relationship with the Iranians. So does Russia. So there's probably going to be another proxy war, just like we're seeing in Yemen, just like we're seeing in Syria, just like we've seen already play out in Libya. That's going to take place in Iran. But another big thing to really kind of calculate here and understand this larger web that the military-industrial complex paints to you is the fact that it was the Gulf War after 2001, in 2003, when the Gulf War was launched, that made Iran such a powerhouse in the Middle East region because it got rid of one of their chief competitors, Iraq, and their sphere of influence actually grew. They became more powerful because of the war in Iraq. So again, these neoconservatives literally created the boogeyman, and we could even talk about the CIA coup in the 50s and all this other stuff. But the fingerprints on the military-industrial complex, on the neoconservatives, is literally create the boogeyman. Let's finance ISIS. Let's make Iran more popular in the region, and let's go to war with them next. They're literally creating their own problems that they're now coming to you and saying, well, we have to, we can't give you that $2,000 check. We can't give you $15 minimum wage. We got this huge threat we got to fight that conveniently we made happen. And that's the big lie sold to the American people who just conveniently keep forgetting American history. I'm doing clapbacks.
That's
I feel
That's a
ashamed
real
for doing
clapback.
that. But I'm just absolutely flabbergasted and so disappointed in people, especially in the mainstream media, that don't talk about these events in relevant timelines that actually give people a perspective to see what's happening here, because we are essentially paying for the destruction of this country by putting us in these quagmires. Meanwhile, China, they're having our lunch. They're probing our diplomats, and they're going to be doing a lot more with their global hegemony, which they're going to take over with their policies rather than our self-destructive, hurting policies that put us in debt and send our American troops into harm's way for what?
We actually have breaking news. We have exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
An exclusive photograph of Joe Biden actually making the switch between giving checks to the American people and dropping a bomb. And as you can see, he's wearing a leather jacket and a, what is that?
Fedora.
Is that a
cool,
fedora?
Joe
though?
Biden.
So, yeah, the Explorer
Yeah,
hat.
and he's got to swap the $2,000 check for the missile.
Very
onto
Like an
the
Indiana
pedestal.
Jones thing.
Yeah,
Yep,
Indiana
yep.
Jones. That's what happened. You know what? You know what's really sad? I'm not mad. I'm sad. All of these Twitter accounts from these progressives who are like, but we thought Biden was the good guy.
Good.
Yeah.
But you thought Biden was the good guy. Oh, poor baby.
At least they're waking up.
Listen, I'm annoyed. I don't want to be mean. I think we're old enough to where we experienced the Obama years. We knew what Obama was going to do, or we knew what Obama did. We knew what Biden was going to do, and we kept saying it over and over again. And they're like, yeah, but Trump is a fascist. Okay, well, have more war, I guess. We're going to go to war with Russia. Let's see how that plays out. That's the next big
Trump
thing, right?
was a fascist, not
he
any more or
wasn't.
less than any other president. That's
not a fascist.
Well, this country's fascist.
No,
dude.
it isn't.
It's built on the backs of slaves and
Dude,
corporatocracy. That's fascism.
No.
It's suitable for us, but it's basically controlling the world through military coercion.
It is not fascism.
It's attempting to.
There's a lot going on in the world.
It's
There's
not
a lot
like
of
dictatorial fascism.
No, you're using fascism as a general term for
the corporations have been. Dude, Raytheon CEO is now our defense secretary. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's crony capitalism.
It sure is.
But we're allowed to talk about it. It's not fascism.
Well, it's not
If
like
it was fascism,
it's
they'd
not
kick the door in,
totalitarian
they'd come
fascism.
in-
It's just like
No,
subversive
that
fascism.
fascism was the fact that they're not coming in here, kicking our door, and then probing us.
It's
shows
not-
that we're not. But if we
what do you call it,
allow these
corporatist?
people, if we allow these people to keep doing these things, eventually it will be.
Yeah,
especially under Joe Biden.
It's an information war. You're right, and it doesn't have to happen in Iran. As long as we keep the communication going and keep people aware that we should not be going into Iran,
all right.
if these bombings are out of order, then I think we won't go in.
Well, another thing to kind of add here, just really quickly, is the fact that China's taking over the world through trade. We're taking it over through military blunders that indebt us forever, and that's not achieving anything. Yeah. Iraq wants us to leave. Syria wants us to leave. There was an Iraqi parliament that literally voted, please, the United States leave. Yeah. The United States decided not to do that and not to listen to a direct government order by the Iraqi government. And that's when we had these mysterious kind of rocket attacks that somehow are justifying our bigger involvement in there. I'm not putting on any theories out there. I'm just saying it was very convenient of a timeline that did happen.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.